Hey y'all. Today I want to show you how to write an interesting and engaging introduction. I find that students often struggle with writing introductions because they attempt to write an intro before they've done their research or outline their major points contained in their body paragraphs. I mean, how can you introduce your paper if you haven't yet figured out what you're going to put in the paper in the first place? So I know it seems backwards, but for this essay, we have saved the introduction for last. Now, probably the hardest task in writing an introduction is writing a hook. A hook is the first few sentences of your essay, and it should grab the reader's attention and make them want to continue to read. Here are just a few ways to write a hook, although there are many more. You could use literary quotes. You could write a quote from a famous person. You could surprise with a misconception. You could write an anecdote, tell a personal story, or use statistical data. I want to go over each one of these methods in detail and give you an example as to how I would do it. The first method of writing a hook is incorporating a quote from literature that has to do with your topic. For my essay, which again is about banning alcohol, I would write the following hook. Religious philosopher and writer Thomas Fuller once said, "Wine hath drowned more men than the sea." The second method of writing a hook is very similar to the first. You could quote a famous person. Now, just make sure the person you're quoting is relevant somehow to your discussion. The late American comedian and actor Robin Williams described his struggle with alcoholism when he said, "As an alcoholic, you will violate your standards quicker than you can lower them." The next method for writing a hook is starting with a surprising misconception. For certain topics, there are many misconceptions you can point to. For my essay, I'd write, "It is commonly believed that alcohol is not as dangerous as illicit drugs. While it is more socially acceptable than many other drugs, it is one of the most abused drugs in society. In fact, alcohol is responsible for more deaths than all illicit drugs combined." The next method I'd like you to know is the anecdote. An anecdote is a brief story about a real person that is designed to grab the reader's attention. For my essay, I'd tell about Stacia Murphy's story of being saved from alcoholism. I'd write, "When Stacy Murphy was found lying on a mattress in the back of an abandoned building, homeless, with no hope, her future behind her, unemployable, and very sick, a stranger saved her life. They brought her to a hospital where she eventually committed to a life of sobriety. This is just one story out of numerous stories illustrating the destructive wake alcoholism leaves behind." The next method is to tell a personal story. If you have a personal connection to this topic, sharing your story is one of the most effective ways to engage your audience. This only works if you're 100% honest and you don't sugarcoat your story. For my essay, I'd write, "Alcohol destroys lives. I have seen this firsthand. For years, my family and I helplessly watched an immediate family member transform from healthy, happy, and financially successful to hitting the absolute rock bottom, stumbling through a path of self destruction and desperation, chasing the demon that comes from the neck of a bottle." The last way to write a hook that I'm going to tell you guys about is to use statistical data. Just make sure your statistic is surprising, dramatic, or shocking. It will have the best effect that way. In my paper, I'd write, "From 1997 to 2019, alcohol related deaths increased by more than 50%. In fact, in 1999, 35,914 people died from alcohol related deaths in America. In just 20 years, that number increased to 72,558. That is a staggering and sobering statistic." You can see all these examples in the introduction document I posted to Google Classroom. The next task in your introduction is to connect your hook to your claim and reasons using a transition sentence or sentences. You want to spend a couple sentences describing or making connections from the hook to the claim. Once you're done with your transition, you can then insert your thesis statement. Now, because we've written all of the body paragraphs for each reason, this should be super easy. The last sentence of your introduction should be your thesis statement. A thesis statement is one sentence that contains your claim and the reasons your claim is true. So, my thesis is alcohol should be banned in the United States because it causes numerous health issues, it leads to many drinking and driving deaths, and it is often the catalyst for violent behavior. That's all today for a tutorial on introductions.